Nature, by and large, is a series of very specialized relationships. So let's talk about some of these relationships. This is one of them. This is the resplendent quetzal. It's an endangered species in the forests of Central America, and it's endangered for one primary reason: it has a very specialized diet. If you don't have fruits of the wild avocado tree, you don't have that beautiful bird. And we have cut down most of the wild avocado trees. But we want that bird in our future, so we figured out we can actually put those trees back. That's an avocado tree right there, and those folks are planting it. Fortunately, those trees grow pretty quickly. They reach the age at which they produce those fruits in not too many years, and it's actually starting to look better for that future of that beautiful bird. That same conservation scenario is repeated time and again, though. If you want to save jaguars, you have to have particular species of palm trees. Why palm trees? Because they make palm nuts, and palm nuts happen to be the favorite food of peccaries, which is the favorite food of jaguars. So we're talking about specialization in the natural world, particularly specialization focused on food webs as being the rule, not the exception, and it always starts with plants. Now, a lot of people think you get all that specialization in the tropical areas of the world because there's a lot of it down there. But we actually have a lot of specialization up here in the temperate zone as well, and some of the most specialized relationships that have ever evolved anywhere occur right in our yards. This is one of them. This is a bolus spider. It's a female hanging from a river birch leaf in my yard. And it's obvious why she's called a bolus spider. She doesn't spin a web. She just drops a single strand of silk, puts one sticky glob of glue at the end there. Now, she doesn't swing it around her head like a bolus. But she does. It looks like she goes fishing with it. She drops it, raises it, lowers it real slowly. And the first time I saw her do that, I told her, "You're not going to catch anything." Because I couldn't believe something would fly into that little target by accident. I thought a web would be a much better design. And that's the way I used to fish, and I didn't catch anything. But about 15 seconds later, a moth flew in, got stuck in her sticky glob of glue. She reeled it in and manipulated it for some time and actually created an egg mass out of that moth. What I didn't know at the time is that that was not an accident. She was releasing the sex pheromone of that particular species of moth. So that guy's a male. He thought she was a female. She was, but the wrong species. And it turns out that every species of bolus spider in the world mimics a sex pheromone of one species of moth. So you can have bolus spiders in your yard if you have the plant that supports the larval development of the moth that your bolus spider is mimicking the sex pheromone of. Again, specialized relationship that gets back to plants. Phlox divaricator, very common spring ephemeral in our gardens, spreads readily from seed, but only if it's pollinated. And if you look at the entrance to that corolla there, it's extremely narrow, tiny little hole. Watch native bees land on these flowers and try to get their mouth parts in there, and they can't do it. So who's pollinating our phlox? Well, it turns out it's day-flying sphinx moths. Things like this hummingbird sphinx or this snowberry clearwing. They have a very long tongue. They sink it deep into the corolla of those flowers, and when they pull it out, it is covered with pollen. And then they fly to the next flower and pollinate it. So you can get your phlox pollinated if you have adult snowberry clearwings. You can have adult snowberry clearwings if you have larval snowberry clearwings. And you can have larval snowberry clearwings if you have their host plant, coral honeysuckle, the native honeysuckle. Even animals we don't think of as having specialized relationships with plants often do, at least at one part of their life history. And I'm going to use the Carolina chickadee as an example. Now you have, it's probably black-capped chickadee here. A little farther south is Carolina chickadee. They're almost identical. They're doing the same thing. We think of chickadees as seed eaters because this is where we encounter them most of the time. They are at our feeders all the time, eating particularly those sunflower seeds. I used to think that was all their diet in the wintertime, but it's actually only 50% of their diet. They're eating insects the rest of the time. But when they are reproducing, when they are making more chickadees, a very important time in their life history, their babies can't eat seeds. They cannot feed them seeds, so they switch to insects. And if they are in a healthy environment, they will feed their babies almost exclusively on caterpillars. And it turns out that they are not exceptions. Most of the birds in North America are rearing their young on insects, and most of those insects are caterpillars. So let's ask the question, why caterpillars? There are a lot of insects out there, but what is special about caterpillars? Well, there are a number of hypotheses, and one is that most of these caterpillars are soft. They're relatively soft, and that means you can stuff them down the throat of your baby without fear of injuring it. And if you've ever watched a parent bird feed its young, they're pretty rough. They use their beak as a plunger, and they really do just stuff it down there. They're also relatively large prey items. So one medium-sized caterpillar is equal to the biomass of about 200 aphids. Now, some of our smaller warblers do chase aphids around, but you want to chase 200 aphids or get one caterpillar. They are nutritious. They're very high in protein. They're very high in fats. They have a low percentage of chitin, of exoskeleton, compared to the amount of food that is in that caterpillar. So think of them as a sausage with a very thin wrapper, compared to a beetle, which is like a tank. Its exoskeleton is very thick, and and remember, chitin is undigestible, so you don't want to be eating tanks built with chitin. And it turns out that caterpillars are the best source of carotenoids for birds when they are breeding.